Hi everyone, welcome to Chidi's Soapbox once again. I'm here to help international students thrive within college and beyond. And I guess in this episode, we're going to the beyond part now. And so in this episode, I'm going to be discussing things that can help you adjust and things that I wish that I knew when I had just graduated. I've been out for about 2 years now, and I also kind of got comments from my friends who had also graduated. And we just went through things that could have made life a bit easier at that point of just finishing school. And so I'm going to share all of that with you today. So I hope you can use these tips as a new graduating class in 2020. It's been a special time for you, but I hope you can make the best of it. So my story, I graduated in May 2018 with my bachelor's degree in civil engineering. And in that time, I had been in an internship that semester, and just being an international student, I had to suspend my internship as soon as I graduated and wait until I got my OPT and my work authorization. And honestly, that gave me some time to apply for a job and do different things. And I started my full-time job in August of that year, and I had to relocate to a whole new city. It was so many different changes in that time. And so for me, just going through all of those means that I was transitioning in multiple ways in that time. And so these are some things that I wish I knew then, or some tips that I would give to someone else who is just graduating right now. I would say number one is celebrate. You have just completed 2, 3, 4 years of this degree. This is kind of the end of your education. You may not ever sit in a classroom again unless you're going to graduate school or something. But this could be the last time that you're ever going to have to sit in a class and learn. And I think that's something worth celebrating. And so I think first things first, before anything else, you should celebrate your accomplishments. You have invested time, money, sleepless nights, tears, blood, everything. And if you don't celebrate this, then I don't know if it was really worth it. So take your time in whatever way you like to celebrate. Just mark this as something that's a really big accomplishment, because regardless of how you think it went, you are now holding onto an accomplishment that maybe only about 30% of America does, and even smaller of a proportion around the world. And so you are quite special in what you've done so far. I would say another important thing to do is to rest. You've been in formal education for years on end now, and the college itself is really intensive. You could be in summer classes, being in involvement like I was, and internships or different jobs. And if you do have that privilege of taking some time off, then you should. In my case, I had to wait a few months for my work authorization to come through. And so for those 3 months, I was applying to jobs. I was preparing for a professional exam that I had to take. And I was spending time with family and friends when I could. So these are important for just slowing down. You can evaluate how things went, plan for things you want, and kind of set yourself up in a good position for kind of starting off your adult life. I would say in the period just after graduating, you can use that as a time to learn and develop yourself, develop new skills. And for my example, I graduated as a civil engineer, and I know the state has a fundamentals of engineering exam that everyone has to take to become board certified. And so I spent my first month doing that and getting that certification. And so you may not have a board that certifies your profession, but there are different things that you could learn. You could look through job postings that you're looking at and look at the preferred skills that they kind of require from you. And so knowing these preferred skills means you can learn them and make yourself look more attractive to those employers, for example. And even if you're not doing something for a job, you could use things like LinkedIn for learning software programs that you could use on your job to teach everything from graphic design to Microsoft Excel. And so there are many resources out there, and universities often have these as free memberships for students. And so look out to see if your university has that and try to pick up those skills. And even just all the way beyond a job, once you do start working, you could get into this routine of just going to work and coming home. And learning some new skills could help you have a side hustle or just a hobby that you could have to break through that routine and just have something that you're doing and you enjoy. In this case, I say be resilient or be consistent. In the hunt for jobs, you're going to be fighting against a really tight job market, and then you're going to be fighting with companies' willingness to hire international students. And so you're going to have rejections inevitably, or not even get any response at all. In my case, I applied to over 200 jobs just to get about 5 or 7 interviews in the end. And so it happens to everybody, and you just need to keep on going and keep on applying because the right job for you is out there. So just update your resume with everything that you did up until the end of school and keep it going, keep consistent. I had a spreadsheet that I used to organize myself and keep all the jobs down and track the responses and all of that. And so that helps you stay organized, and also just kind of don't be tied down to one exact dream job. Kind of widen your vision a bit just to see different parts of your field, for example, or things that you could fit in well that are open to you. Going off of that, if you feel that what you got your degree in might not be what you want to do for the rest of your life, then feel free to think about pivoting or moving to a different career. I've seen people do it already in a short time, and it is possible that your skills fits into a different job, for example. And this is pretty dangerous to say, considering you just spent all this time and money getting a degree for one thing. But in some fields, they are able to accept people from many different fields. For example, I know finance companies like the Goldman Sachs of the world, they actually like to hire engineers. And so I have many friends who are engineers who work as like finance analysts now, just because they want your math skills and your analysis and your ability to do that. And so if you think that what you got a degree in is not going to be the best for you, then think about different ways that you can fit into different jobs and kind of transition into that. And it's not too late. It's still the beginning of your life, basically. And so don't be afraid to do that. This is part of the whole job application process, but I would say that you should curate your online presence. So Google yourself, see what comes up, check your social media accounts. I know you're just coming out of college. Make sure all of those crazy nights don't end up on your Facebook page, and that's all that people see if they search you. Social media doesn't have to be a bad thing. You don't have to delete all of your accounts. You could be in a creative field, and your social media could work as a portfolio for you. And those are things that you would want to display. So you don't have to completely throw it out, make it work to your advantage, and just curate it. Make sure that you're giving them the image that you want to be seen as a new professional, for example. Process for finding what your next step is, it's a good thing to use the relationships that you already have, whether it's people that you know in school or professors or old managers, for example. I learned a lot about the process and things I needed to keep on my radar just by talking to students who had graduated before me. In my job search, I was leaning on my managers at my old internship for recommendations and just looking out for opportunities that I could go into. And so these will help you in your job search because you're in college for a while, you meet people who may be friends for life or people that you just may never see again, but you have invested some time into these relationships. And this isn't calling you to just use them as tools, but you have people in your life for a reason. And if you're not tapping into those relationships, then you may be missing out on things that you could get just by talking to them and having a conversation with them. And on top of that, kind of on the relationship end, you really have to put in effort for relationships. Now, after college, everybody kind of goes their own way. And you would have to put in lots of effort just to make sure that you're seeing people or you're spending time with them or just checking in on them. You don't even have to be in person anymore now. Just keeping in touch with people and doing that can help you transition this loneliness. I think everybody goes through a bit of loneliness just after college, between figuring out things and just having a change and having not really being around people your age anymore. It's the last time you're going to be surrounded by people who are just about the same age. And so checking on your friends, listen to them, visit them if you can, and maintain those relationships that you formed so far. If they can give you professional benefits, that's an even bigger plus. It's hard to come into a new season where you don't have metrics defining you anymore, But I'll tell you now that your GPA doesn't define you anymore. You're free of it. You may have to jump through some hoops if you're going to graduate school or to higher education beyond college. And then you would need to prove your GPA and all of that. But in the professional world, for example, it really doesn't matter for much. Now, college is tough, and you may have had a really hard time and you didn't get the academic expectations that you set out for yourself. Or you may have been flawless in college and being absolutely successful. But it really doesn't define you going forward on both ends. Because if you feel that you didn't do that well, this is a whole new season for you to define yourself by new expectations. And these things aren't going to be there really in the real world to measure you on a constant basis. If you were flawless, I think it still doesn't define you because it doesn't really give you a full prediction of what is going to come for you just by that. And so you should still be open to learning. In my 2 years I've been working, I haven't had anyone make me remember what I got out of college. And so on both ends, just be humble and know that even if you did well in college, you still have to do lots of learning in the real world on a job or different things. And if you didn't do so well, this is a new chance for you to define yourself and still be someone who can be consistent, who can be a hard worker and show up. So when I ask people for graduation tips, people mention that they still didn't have things figured out after college. And I related to that a lot because I think the expectation is to come out and to be complete and to be a whole new person and just go on to be a millionaire or something. And it's hard because you tend to come out as a class of 2020, for example, and you could start measuring yourself alongside other people who you feel are at the same level right now. And I think it just takes a lot of understanding to know that you have your own path and your own journey, and things that are meant for someone else may not be meant for you or may not be meant for you right now. You may not be traveling the world on Instagram like everybody is or getting a full ride to medical school right now. But know that you have set those out for yourself and have faith in them and work towards them. Because things will happen overnight and you may still need some time to figure out. I don't think many people we can compare ourselves to have an exactly identical situation to us. And so there are different things to consider. I feel like I learned this when I was applying to college, actually. I finished secondary school in 2012 and I had done A-levels and I went to college in 2014. So it had been 2 years since I finished secondary school. And I had my friends who were in Nigeria, who had gone to university in Nigeria. They had been 2 years ahead of me at this point. And my friends who I did A-levels with, for example, they already were a year ahead of me. And it really took a lot of mental courage to understand that I was working towards something that I wanted. And I was going to have to do it the right way and take the right steps. And so having faith in what you have set out for yourself as a plan will really help you to come to terms with the fact that you can't really compare yourself to anyone else. And you may not have things figured out now, but you are a work in progress and you need to go through that phase and just do the work, be consistent with it, and you will get to your goals. I'll end with like money stuff in general. So now you're out of college, budgeting and understanding your money, making the best use of it is a whole new part of your life now. It's a really big part of your life. People may be coming out with loans and different things or obligations to family. And so you need to understand what's non-negotiable and things that you could put off. For example, you could have to set new financial goals for yourself, or know the things that you have to do to reach those in a short term. For example, if you're living with family once again, or if you're living on your own, figuring those out and understanding your income, understanding investing going forward. In my case, it was a really hard time for me just after college with money because I had just had to suspend all kinds of work because being an international student, I had to end my internships. And so I went from earning a bit of money to earning like no money over those few months. And I had to borrow from friends for rent. And when I started my full-time job, my first paycheck was like more money than I had ever had. And then I had to go into getting my 401k and getting health insurance set up. And so just within those 3-4 months, I was going on two very different ends of the money spectrum for myself. And so understanding those can give you a good head start. I didn't have loans, and so I know that people struggle with them, and I know it could be best to figure them out as early as possible, just not to attract too much interest. And so finding the right tools for money and getting yourself acquainted with that. For budgeting, in my first few months of working, I didn't exactly set a budget for myself. I kind of put myself in an exploration mode. And afterwards, I went through and reviewed all of my expenses. So this helped me to see my patterns of spending, understanding about how much on average I was spending on groceries or how much I needed when I was eating out too much or buying too many shoes, for example. So doing an exploration like that kind of helps for setting a budget before you actually set, oh, I'm going to only spend this much on this thing, and setting a cap on that. So going through that budgeting process can help you do that. On Microsoft Excel itself, it has spreadsheets, and there are a million financial tools that you can find out there to help you, even many apps, many things you can use to learn and get your life going on the money front. Well, I hope all of these have been useful to you. If there are other things that you feel like you need to pass on to the class of 2020 or any class that's watching this, feel free to comment and share what you learned, things that you wish that you had learned just when you graduated from college. Thank you guys for watching once again. See you next week on the next video. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, and share with anyone who you think would benefit from this. Thank you for watching once again.